Ooh.
All right, we're going to level with you. A lot of IT work is repetitive. If not the actual clicks, then the tasks you're doing day after day.
Yeah, and whether it's a password reset or reconfiguring routers or flushing application pools, rolling IIS services, whatever it does, it comes down to the same stuff, but a different day.
Right, which is why when you find a trick that works really well, you sort of cherish it and you put it in your little toolbox and you carry it around with you so that you can use it all the time.
Yeah, and that's what this IT Life Hack series is really all about. Kind of a collection of those tips and tricks you can use that can benefit everybody.
On the menu today is a place where a lot of us started our IT career, which is networking. So these are some network IT life hacks. To quote my favorite Vulcan, reload in is and always shall be your friend. What I mean by that is that
It's true.
the reload in command will basically say in a certain amount of time, reload everything so that if you screwed it up royally, you get everything back the way it is. So let me just show you an example. Here I am on my router, and let's say that I have changed the IP address of the Ethernet interface that I'm actually SSH'd in on. That means I've cut off my arm at the elbow. There's no getting back to that except with a drive to there. So instead, what I'm going to do before I start reconfiguring is say reload in, and I can say 10 minutes.
And that's great. But if you're actually working with time and you actually have your stuff set up with proper time, like whether you're using NTP or you set the local clocks, there's also reload at. So instead of having to remember, oh, how many minutes do I have left? You can just keep looking at your clock and like, oh, it's at 1/2 past the hour.
Right, exactly. And also be aware that it's no more than 24 days from now, regardless of whether you do reload in or reload at. So here I have a reload set. So I have accidentally misconfigured my IP address. I can't get to the box, but as long as I'm a little patient, go get a cup of coffee, whatever, in 10 minutes, it's all going to come back.
And it's actually a really great way. Now, if you're not messing with like your connectivity, you can always do what I used to do and cheat and pop two console windows simultaneously. Have one that goes in, maybe you're just changing the enable address and you change it there. And then the second one, you try and say, oh, the enable does work. Cool, everything's fine. And that way, if it doesn't, you can go back on this one where you still have enough rights and fix it again.
Right. Now, you and I both know that there is a certain company that makes a really good tool that will do configuration backup and comparison. Right. But that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about life hacks. And you might not always have that tool at your disposal. So what do you do if you still need to back up a metric butt ton of routers in some organization?
You do the same thing that every other admin has been doing for years, and you replace it with a small shell string, small shell script. But it's not really that small. There's a little more complexity to it. And I just did a quick web search and I found one. And this one takes, you put your creds in a file, you put an IP list in a file, and it runs on Python, and you can just run it, and then it saves them all into files. Now, for this one, it only grabs the running, not the startup config, and for other ones, there's different ways you can do it. And obviously, this one's kind of tailored for Cisco and could be tweaked for other ones.
Yeah.
But just find a way to do this automatically, especially if you have this thing run as like a scheduled job somewhere.
Yeah,
it can work. It's not going to show you the deltas, and there's still some kind of manual work involved with keeping it up to date. But if you just need a quick tool, something like this is ideal.
The next life hack should come as no surprise. We talk a lot about terminal and command line and things like that. So having a good terminal program is worth its weight in Cisco certifications. Okay, PuTTY's there. Like, we're not going to lie to you. It's there. It just works. We all know that. But there are some things that you look for if you're going to spend day after day in terminal at the command line that you're going to want to look for. Kevin, what are some of your top items that you want?
So for me, there's a handful. I would love to be able to save snippets in this thing so I can use it over and over again instead of having to go open another notepad or something like that. Being able to change the font and the colors. I know that sounds weird, but it helped me delineate whether I was on this type of gear or this other type of gear.
Yes, production versus lab.
Yes. Yeah.
Please.
Green versus blue. Blue is everything else. Simple things like that make for a world of difference, and that these settings are sticky or could be saved into some type of profile. And hopefully that profile you can take with you if you need to set it up again somewhere else.
Yeah. Also, tabbed don't,
Yes.
like I want to have the option for tabs, but I also want to have the option to open them up into different windows if I need to. Resizable, scalable, so that if I drag something, it gets bigger, because I am old. So I really do need sometimes to make it big, and I don't want to have to go into setting, and change font. Yeah. So we don't need to belabor this, but just know that there are terminal programs out there that are highly customizable and that it can make a visible difference in the way you get work done.
Frequently when you're working with networking, you'll find yourself kind of double checking things. And one of the things I found repeatedly, and I want to say repeatedly, like everywhere, is that people think they have their switch stacks configured correctly. And right, maybe the config is done, but the backside of that, maybe not so much. I see a lot of people where they will have the stack cables and they'll go from switch 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and it's all the way down to the bottom. And it's great.
Yay.
But they don't do the one back to the top. So if you have a failure somewhere, you've got a problem. And that's difficult. And keeping track of that, and then since it's all managed as one thing, although they all have separate serial numbers, understanding what switch is what, and also which one is basically running the show is
and by the way, that ring, you have to do that for data and power.
Yes, yeah, on certain models, if they have the power redundancy, you've got to do the same thing there. And let's be serious, if you're doing power properly, you should have one of those ports going to house power and one going to battery. But that's a different discussion.
Right.
But understanding what, like the serial numbers, because they're normally only exposed in something like CLI, or you can maybe get them somewhere else. Having that, especially if one goes bad, no one thinks about it. But if you have switch 4 in a stack of, I don't know, 7 of them go bad, that's not good. And because now that it's down, you can't get the serial number because it's offline. And when you open a case and say, hey, I need an RMA for a switch, they're like, okay, what's the serial number? And you're like, that's a really good question. Then you're asking someone to go back in that closet and read that tiny little label in the dark. And maybe it's someone who is, if this is a branch office, that might not be someone who understands even what you're asking them to do.
Right. You end up getting the model number or something like that.
Over and over again. Or you get a picture where it's not clear, and then you're in the same circumstances. So understanding switch stacks, that they're wired correctly, that they're configured well, and knowing just that, having that security that it's done is fantastic.
So I want to start off with a short story. This is a shout out to my friend Debbie Hooper. We used to sit in high school in the hallway outside the band room, and I would quiz her on the periodic table of elements. Her life's goal was to be a microbiologist. She actually is a microbiologist, but at that point she was a wannabe microbiologist, and so she needed to learn in chemistry class and all that stuff. She needed to learn the periodic table, so I quizzed her, and then went to college. And I called her a couple of years later when she was working, and I said germanium, thinking that she would give me the atomic weight, and she's like, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? We spent years doing this. How could you? And she, I don't have to know that. I can look that up. And the point of that story is, for network engineers, don't memorize what you can easily look up. Don't spend time remembering how to do ROM-mod, even though it's the first thing you learn in the CCNA class, because you'll be able to look that up when you need it.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter, if you know it exists somewhere, you can always do the Alta Ask Duck Binglehoo and find it on the
Gesundheit.
Yes. Sorry. I meant search engine of your choice. You can just find it online somewhere. And maybe if you really need to make sure you can find it again, just mark it as a favorite.
Mark it. But yeah. So just remember, you always have Alta Ask Duck Binglehoo. For the last life hack, I want to switch into hardware mode. And what you need to make sure that you have at all times is one of these. I'm going to hold it up and just hold it real slow. This is a USB port on one side, and it is a serial port on the other side. So just so you can see it. And what this does is it lets you connect into the console cable that's in any of your hardware, because sometimes you don't have the USB connector with it. And what you do is you plug it in, and then you have to go to Device Manager to see what COM port it's connected to. So I'm going to do that now. So you can see in Device Manager that this is plugged into COM10 from a USB serial port. That's important. And now when I go into my terminal program like PuTTY, I say COM10, speed 9600. There's a couple of other settings you need to put in under serial, 9600, 8 data bits, 1 stop bit. That's also important to remember. 9600, 81 none.
Yep.
9600,
live by it. If you don't know that.
9600. Well, okay.
Yep.
Remember we said you don't have to memorize things.
Yep.
You can look it up.
Yep. And thankfully, that's the default on this particular console program.
Yeah. And when you use this, then you can now console hardware into your router, but you have to have the hardware piece.
And I would go one further. Don't buy one, buy two. Keep one in your bag at all times,
yes,
just in case. And what I used to do, it was great. You keep your own personal serial connection cable hooked to it all the time.
Those are just a few of the life hacks that Kevin and I have collected, but we'd love to hear what some of yours are.
Yeah, and meanwhile, look for more IT life hacks coming soon.